Yes, finally.
Finally, we're about to start. Peter just introduced our names, so everybody knows us. Hello, Helen.
Hi. Hi, Rebecca. Hi, everyone.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Peter for the invitation and to lower the expectations about the agriculture, because we are not, we would like to touch upon broadly on the spectrum of women entrepreneurship and founding, and guide you through several questions and statistics as well. We managed to find some on agriculture, so we'll also show, but it's not deeply on agriculture, just to make that point before we start. So yeah, as you said, you've introduced all of us. So maybe we can start with the first question. Why are we, the three of us, here, and why we are so passionate about women entrepreneurship? Is it only this passion that it's bringing women like us or others, or there's other purpose behind? Is there something intrinsic or holistic to this passion about entrepreneurship?
Well, maybe I'll start. Thank you, Rebecca, for hosting, and thank you, Peter. I mean, the topic tonight is about promoting entrepreneurship and women in entrepreneurship. I think if we believe that entrepreneurship, in the sense of creating something new, is worth promoting, then it is worth promoting for everybody, right? So that to me is the premise. And at the same time, we know, and Rebecca, you'll show some statistics, that there is really a tiny percentage of share of founders that are female. If you look at the funding that goes to women, you know, we will hear more statistics, that is only like 2% of VC funding. And if women make 50% of society and entrepreneurship something worthwhile, why wouldn't we want to promote that to everyone? So for me, it's really, really a given. And I believe there's something in the system that is not correct. If 50% of the population make up 2% of a share of something. And I think everybody who have kids, I mean, you have a son and a daughter, why wouldn't you want both of them have equal chances to do something worthwhile? So this is the point where, for me, it's coming from.
You're mute, Taryn. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm Taryn Andersen, and I'm a venture capital, TH Capital, that we are investing in United States and then Canada at earlier stage. And besides, we have built a nonprofit international association where we work both sides, online and offline. It's called Impulse for Women, and the main goal is to connect females entrepreneurs and social impact projects with investors, depending of we cover the stage since the beginning until the exit of the startup. And I'm working in both sides in one way or another one. As Impulse for Women, I feel like an entrepreneur. And for sure, I can tell you that if I wasn't passionate about it, it takes you very hard work to develop it, to rise, to fight with the reality of the market, and to try to put on and set it up everything on the table. So if you do not have passion, you're not connected, it's very difficult to develop a project. That's one side. Besides, now talking like a venture capital, when I'm sitting and watching pitches, I could feel when a female or a male, they are good, they're gonna be a potentials entrepreneurs that we're going to invest on them, just because the way that they react until you, and the way that the passion that they have with their project, like there's nothing else in the world better than what they have, even though that you're telling them, and the resiliences that they have according to the project that they're developing.
Yeah, so after the passion, we go to the reality. Yeah, and I will share with you. Let me know if I'm sharing the screen. Okay, so we'll show some statistics, but not that one yet. Voila, yeah. Can you see the screen?
Not yet, no.
No? Okay, I go back. It should be. It's disabled, Peter, so I cannot share the screen. Host disabled attendee screen sharing. Yeah. So if you can, yeah. So we have the first statistics. Do you have them?
No, we don't see yet.
And from Peter?
You are the host now. I've made you the host.
Ah, you made me host. Okay. So I can share screen.
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah. So can you see it now?
No.
No? Okay. Desktop, Keynote. Pages, sure. A ver, let's see. Can you see it now? Not yet, but I think it's opening. Can you see it now?
No, but if you want me to load them instead, we can do that too.
Yeah, it will be better.
I'll take back in the host.
Thank you. Sorry for that.
Which ones are which
Yeah,
file did you want first?
so the first one that is with the WE stats. So the statistics, general
Okay, the
statistics.
capture WE.
Yeah,
Okay.
that one. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Of course. This looks like it's the WE is how can we improve female entrepreneurship?
No, no, it's only the one slide. Stats 2705-2020.
Okay. Is it a PowerPoint WE stats _ 27052020?
Exactly. Yeah, that one. Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I need you to make me host again, or reclaim host. I can do that here. One moment.
Sorry for keep you waiting.
I should have tested this before better. It's fine.
Yeah.
Here are the stats then.
Thank you. So yes, you can see in the presentation, it seems a bit depressing, right, to go through all the statistics, like only 30% of women entrepreneurs in Europe. And for the States, the US, it's 38, and it has increased since 2007. As Helen was saying before, there's a 2% of venture capital that is raised by women startups. There's a 5 to 15% of women-led companies in high tech, in the high tech businesses, and only 20% of public procurement, so which means the contracts and bids that are going to the public services goes to women-led companies. And in one of the studies on the European Tech Report at the end of last year, it's highlighted that $92 in every 100 are invested only in companies that are led by men. So yeah, it's It disappeared now. And if you can go to the other presentation, do you have it at hand? Otherwise, I continue with the questions. Well, maybe I can go with the questions. So we start.
Do you prefer this or the next?
Yeah. So after listening to these statistics that we all know, funding goes larger to men. How can we change this ratio? That's the reason why we are all here. And in which aspects do you think we need to focus more that we haven't done yet?
Hello, shall I get that one?
Yeah.
Okay. One of the reasons that we built up Impulse for Women was actually because as an investor, I didn't find females entrepreneurs to invest at. That's one point. And the other one is because the relationship that the female has with an investor is very different than with the male. So what are the barriers that we have to skip? Maybe it's trying to have self-esteem that our project and what we're doing, we are convinced of that, is there's a need in the market, there's solving a problem, and we're going to have clients. And once that we believe on all this, just jump over there and look at the investors. They're going to see your benefits and your profits to invest in you.
Helen, you have...
Yeah, I'm thinking about this. So I have also mentored recently a program, an accelerator, which is purely for female entrepreneurs. It's called F-Lane from Vodafone Institute. And I think, you know, having programs so that the entrepreneurs can get together and feel promoted and encouraged to do. I think that's sort of one side. You can sort of work on the side of the women, right? You can make them sort of try more confident, go to the networks. That's one side. I think the other side is sort of the circumstances that women find themselves in, and there is bias and probably unconscious bias, and we had a conversation about that. And I think the other part that needs to happen is to work on this unconscious bias on the side of, say, the funders that is doing that. So that comes from both sides.
Okay, good. Well, I wait in case we manage to put the other presentation. Do you think that women get connected more to create businesses if they are connected to their values? And how, if we convince them that this is a positive externality for society, will that change?
You mean if women create businesses that are connected to values?
Yeah.
I think many entrepreneurs, hopefully not the most, create businesses that's connected to the values. I think the way to give you that passion, this resilience to sort of power through happens most if it's connected to something sort of intrinsic and what you call here the externalities, or sort of contributing to a bigger good. So I think that most entrepreneurs would sort of do that. So I mean, I think this is already happening, and most female entrepreneurs I've spoken with, all of their startups are connected with sort of an intrinsic value beyond that. I have not seen so many where it's just an extrinsic focus so far, actually.
Well, actually, what is for sure is female is always building community and thinking of the family and the neighborhood and everyone. So yes, they're connected for sure in values. And if you analyze it, that's a social impact data. You got 70% of the startups created from females. They already have values for society, or they're giving back in one way or another one to the society. But that's a reality.
Thank you. So I see that we have the presentation just to show some more numbers on the European Startup Monitor. survey that they launched. If you could go to the next slide, please. So it was launched to 31 countries in Europe. So not only European Union member states, but also other European countries. And from the 48 responses, if you go to the last slide, we can see how this is per sector. Yeah, this one, thank you. The size of the founders of the startups, you can see how it goes from 1 person to more than 6. But the gender balance is the one more revealing. 67% is only men founders, and then you have 80% only women, and you have a 25% that there were at least 1 woman or 1 man. So that's another statistic quite revealing that I wanted to show, because it's quite easy to catch. Thank you. Yeah, so I'll go quickly to the next question. So we are in the COVID times and the pandemic. Do you think that this crisis affected more women entrepreneurs, or it affected equally entrepreneurs?
Hi. Well, I think that for entrepreneurs, depending on the sector that they're positioned, for sure they're going to have problems, especially if they're in tourism. When I'm talking to tourism, we include since the restaurant until the airplane ticket and the taxi driver. Besides, compared to the entrepreneurs, to the normal employment, females are in disadvantage along with the males, just because the employments are much more or less salaries and they have part-time employments. But when we are talking about entrepreneurship and the situation is going along with them, they have the same facilities than the males, and depending on which sector are they probably will be in one shot right now.
Sorry, Helen, do you have a different opinion on that, or share?
I think, you know, I don't have statistics, right? I haven't seen sort of a set statistic that would find that out. I think it would be interesting to see. We definitely have seen some sort of certain part of the population were more affected by COVID. If you even look at, you know, people whose health are affected. I saw some statistics in the US, like, like for example, Hispanics or people of color are generally more affected of those who are in the hospitals. I have not seen specific statistics about female who are sort of economically affected. I think though, if you think about what seems to be true is that the most vulnerable are more affected, whether it's sort of more vulnerable health, more vulnerable from your job perspective, from your economic perspective, they are more affected. So from that perspective, you know, it could be that, you know, female work in certain sectors that are more affected than the male. So it's not because you're female, but it could be an indirect correlation there. I think it's an interesting question.
The conversation, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what is happening in COVID is, it's not that the virus somehow is gender selective, even though biologically there are some, but it's that it uncovers the inequalities in society, basically, right? It has sort of shined a light on it where more than before it is the case. And you see it very, very clearly, especially in countries where it's like less of a safety net. So therefore, I think since there is inequality gender-wise, there's inequality in pay. I mean, so if you have lower pay and you have a cut, then it might affect you more than if somebody already has a higher pay. So in that sense, I could imagine it will make it more apparent, this inequality that is happening on gender as well.
Okay. Moving on to the next question, but I wanted to remind everyone that you can place your questions on the chat box, and Peter will moderate that and help me with that. Thank you. So touching upon with what I've presented on the startup scenario, where mostly are more than 60% are men founders, and digital, as we've seen it going, continuing with the COVID crisis, is here to stay. So it's something that it's hitting us, and it will continue. And we will be seeing probably more crisis, or we will be seeing more digital solutions. And women are still lagging behind from the tech opportunities. And this, I know Taryn, it's in the investor side of tech, so we have a different view from that. So I wanted to know from you, what's your perspective to the digital challenges that women entrepreneurs are going to face, and how to convince that to be a tech CEO, you don't need to be specifically a techie, so you don't need to be technically skilled. Yeah, thank you.
I think, the digital challenge, it sort of affects everybody. If you are a business that is not yet digital, then you already are losing out, right? Those which are digital or in sectors that are winning. I think, coming to your question, how to make sure more women become tech CEOs, I agree that you don't have to be an engineer or programmer background in order to head up tech companies. I think it's absolutely possible that you bring the managerial perspective. What I would say, though, is that at least you need to know people in your founders team, which are the techies. So if you are in this network, or you have studied it, or you know people who are doing it, it's much easier. You will, by nature, have more opportunities. So therefore, I believe by enlarging the network, if you're not a techie or in a techie field, to increase basically your network towards that field, to mingle with people in that group, is one of the most important ways to do that.
Thank you. Well, I think that the society is turning into a technology lifestyle, and we have to be very aware that all those sectors where the females, they feel much more comfortable, like could be tourism, could be education tech, food tech, fashion, and health. As long as they start to include the technology into their day life, that's one point. And when they want to become an entrepreneur, I think that is a way to freedom, actually, because you are the one who is developing, the one who is making it, the one who knows what she's doing, and no one around you is gonna disturb you if you got a very good business model and you found the dot or the spot. That's one point. And another one, I really agree with Helen, that females, they think that they must be engineers to become an entrepreneur. And it's like, how many chefs are super good and they do not know how to manage a restaurant? I mean, the two things super different, and it's something that I'm always pushing them and telling them, like, hey, come on, you don't have to be a good chef to be the owner of a restaurant. That's one side. And the other one, it's a lack of knowledge at that point. And sometimes I think that females, that they're very comfortable on communities, and it's very nice when they are getting their own ecosystem where they feel comfortable and they can find everything, all the issues that they need to develop, but they have it. So it's just a matter of try to go and Google. That's it.
Thank you. Going back to also what Helen pointed out, do you think it's access to networks? I believe from being in different women networks that we tend to feel more at ease or in a comfort zone, and it gives you a lot of empowerment and also knowledge, this knowledge that you wouldn't get other way. So we will probably not have time, but we can share on the Slack resources, or even for the participants, all the networks that we know related to women entrepreneurship in Europe or around the world. So that's one thing that I think it makes a difference, because this way to connect and access to networks for men and women are different.
Yeah, definitely. If you think about, especially if you think about venture capital, or it's such a network driven, right? If you are referred by X and Y, if you know so and so that they previously funded, I mean, these are areas where it's not so easy to get your foot in the door if you don't already have some sort of leverage or opening. So I definitely think this plays a role.
Okay, so going into, I mentioned access to networks, but also what about finances? How do you think we can get more women to become investors themselves? Will they be investing in women-led companies or projects? And will that be a solution to this funding gap?
Tara, you are an investor, so maybe you want to.
The point is, females think that it's a lot of money that you need to invest. That's one. And the other one, that it's very difficult. And it's not. And until you don't start to break up these barriers and they start to understand, this is why it's so important on those networks. And actually, depending on which network you're going to, they're going to show you how to invest. It's not so difficult. And the average of life, it's like 10 years younger than it was in our parents' life. What does it mean? Females from 40 to 50, they are having kids already at school, they are having very good positions in corporates, they already have a lot of money in salaries, and they could start to help to the other ones. And especially the way that females collaborate between them, it's much more closely than the males. So it will be a very good opportunity that right now that we are in COVID, this period, and we are having a lot of webinars and people are spending time to learn about another ones, that we make a lot of, academics or webinars regarding on how to invest. And I think it's our job, the ones that we are investing, to tell them how to do it.
Yeah, and I know there are more and more networks of business angels that are being, popping up by women. Thank you. So now we are going to show you a video. We hope you will enjoy it and it will work.
Are you showing from your computer or?
No, from, yeah. There it goes.
All right, there. Ah, there's no sound.
No sound.
The riddle. A father is about to bring his son to a job interview, applying for a position at a large stockbrokers company in the city. Just as they arrive at the company's parking lot, the son's phone rings. He looks at his father, who says, "Go ahead, answer it." The caller is the trading company CEO, who says, "Good luck, son, you've got this." The son ends the call and once again looks at his father, who is still next to him in their car. How is this possible?
He gets a call from the CEO, but it says,
"Good luck, son."
But he was next to him.
So it's not the father. I think it was probably an audio recording of his father.
Maybe he made a demo tape.
Like he has two fathers?
This is a hard one.
Maybe it's a word joke, like it's the grandfather of the son. No, I think his name is Son.
I don't know.
Maybe it's just like an old man, you know, calling a younger guy son.
I have no idea.
The answer. It's his mother.
Ah! Oh, that's so stupid. Yes, of course.
Ah, you're...
Ah!
I should have thought of that, yes.
The CEO is a woman.
So I'm biased. In a sense. Is this about diversity and inclusion?
It's really mind-blowing, actually.
So I always thought that I'm not very sexist. But in spite of that, I think these subconscious biases are there in everyone's mind.
How much bias I still have in terms of thinking that the CEO needs to be a man.
Yeah, I definitely was picturing a man. They identify with males more than females these days.
Why can't women also be CEOs or doctors or, right?
When I think about a CEO or someone that's high positioned within a company, I mostly think of men.
And it's a shame, I think.
And it's so weird because I'm a CEO and I'm a woman. And I want to be a CEO. Why didn't I think about that?
I believe women can absolutely be CEOs, and that's definitely something that we should work on, especially when you're saying that so many people have been told this riddle and most people haven't gotten it.
Women make great CEOs and great leaders as well. And yet only 5% of Fortune 500 CEOs are women. Let's change our mindset.
Thank you. So yeah,
Yeah.
on the bias.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting. So basically, I got this video last night when I was actually thinking about about the panel today from a friend who's a female entrepreneur. And I did it myself, and I have to admit that I found out I was biased because I didn't think it was a mother myself. And it was really shocking to me. And I thought, you know, even if you think you are definitely not within the group, it just highlights how much bias there is that is so unconscious and hidden. So I don't know how it is with all the others who've seen this video, but definitely most of the people whom this been shown, and these are men and women coming from different backgrounds, have not solved it, right? So that shows us.
I would like to link this to the next question. Why it's more difficult for women to access funding than for men? And I was thinking about this gender bias, so your video came in that moment. Gender bias by investors, or which are the pitfalls that women face raising funds and money? Maybe Taryn, you can reply to that one.
Thank you very much. That's an interesting question, just because most of the venture capitals, when we receive the deal flow, the first thing we're looking is the business model. The second thing we're looking is how do you make profits? And the third thing is the team. And so when you receive an amount of 1,500 deal flow per year, you're not looking if it's a female or male. You're just looking if you like the business model, the profits, and if you like the team. That is one of the most important things that we deal with on the long term. So I think that it will be super interesting to talk to females, and they should know the way that venture capital are analyzing. For sure, you can find a percentage of males that will never invest in females, the same way that there will be females that they will never invest in males. But this is not in general terms. So as long as they know the way that the investment from the venture capital is going to the market, they will start to reduce these biocodifications that some of them, they're completely turned. Thank you.
Well, I mean, I do think there is bias, because I think if you look at the funnel, like of those which have a female founder or a female led to those who get funded, right? I just do not believe that there is only 2% of the startup that gets to the deal flow that then venture capital sees has an involvement of a female founder. I just think it's much more. then it does mean that the percentage of females that can go through the funnel and get funded is lower than the male one. And what is, what is the reason for that? And I can't help but think that some unconscious bias of a typical type of entrepreneur does play into that.
So before we go to the questions and answers, maybe I some practical tips that you've been in pitching sessions with startups and investors in one way or another through accelerators. So which tips or advice would you give to, in 3 lines or 3 bullet points? How, and also which benefits will it bring to have a more diverse board? Also for consumers to get products where the company is more diverse.
Well, I think that, first of all, a lot of buying decisions are made by women. I mean, it's actually more than half, because a lot of products of men are bought by women as well, or say for their sons and kids. So it makes sense to know your customer, and therefore it makes sense to do that. Secondly, I think more and more consumers are becoming aware, if you don't have any woman involved or you have a non-diverse board or management, it's more likely nowadays to also create backlash. So these alone, and then the third one is access to talents, right? I mean, if you only look at one pool of talents where there are many pools, then you fish in a smaller pond. And by nature, your chances is lower to get the very best out there altogether. Should we take?
So do you want to start taking questions from the group?
A lot of questions here in the chats.
We do. So the first one I've got here was, in places when it's illegal to recruit based on gender or race, is there a best way to recruit for leadership positions without leaving yourself vulnerable legally? So if a company has the goal of increasing diversity, but it's also illegal for them to discriminate, how can they go about best doing that?
So in my company, one thing we've changed, I think maybe 2 years ago, is that when we recruit and we go through recruiters and executive search, that we say we just want them to bring equal genders in the candidates. And it's not acceptable that for position they bring, say, 5 or 10 typically for the long list, there's only men. I mean, that's just not acceptable. Then they have to go back and find. And once we have the long list, we don't then look at. We then just do the interview and see who comes through. And that has actually changed this sort of one initiative alone, the gender percentage in managerial roles. Are you muted?
Oops, sorry. The next question here on the list was, do you think female investors might be more willing to tolerate a longer return on investment? I guess, Taryn, you are a female investor, so what's your opinion on that?
No, we're looking the same road that anyone else. What I think is actually the male sector. The sector is much more male than female. Maybe when females start to come over, we will start to make a different ways of approach to the investment than it is right now. But nowadays, it's a male sector, so we have to play their rules to be over there. There's not going to be any difference between one and another one. If there are coming new ways of investment in the next future, maybe females will make it in a different way and it will be also included, but not today. We are looking the same, and investment is always looking, okay, I'm going to give you money. When is going to be my exit? When is the first things I give you money, but when I'm going to get it back again? That's one of the mainly questions that we're going to make to any startup since the beginning.
I see there's a request for sharing some of the resources that are available, especially about how to approach VCs. Rebecca's commented we'll share some of these things in the Slack channels, but if you want to address any of those, now or describe any things that they'll be shared later?
Shall I go for that one?
Please.
Okay, it's super important to know the maturity and economic needs from your startup. That's the first question. You cannot, time is a matter of, is a very important KPI, especially when you're launching into the market. You cannot spend 3 months going to find the incorrect investor. So the first thing is you have to know if you are prepared for a business angel, for a family offices, for a venture capital, early stage, series A, B, C, and please study a little bit about that. That's the first thing. The second one is that all those investors that you are gonna search to, please analyze if they're going to your sector. Because if not, they're not gonna even say anything to you, you know? So don't lose time, because when you have to raise capital, it takes like 40% of your time that you are not spending in your project. So it's very important to be prepared in the correct way. Thank you.
Okay, great. Bob makes a point of a similar story to what we saw in the video of this father-son incident. There's a father and a son in a car accident being wheeled into the emergency room, but the surgeon says, "I cannot operate on him. He's my son. How can this be?" And of course, similar to the video, this was, in this case, it was the doctor was his mother. And so the same kind of concept as we saw with the entrepreneurship case of that gender bias. I see Kaka makes a question. Women do not have a right in many countries on land ownership. And what is the solution there? I mean, I guess the most clear would be changing the laws to have equal rights, but other than that.
Yeah, well, I think there's one of the things the United Nations has been fighting for, and yeah, it's aligned with these very known sustainable development goals, and yeah, we don't have an answer, I think, unfortunately. We wish it was different, but it's, yeah, it's what Peter, you were saying, we need to change the law.
We are...
Something else that I'm missing?
No, Bob mentioned a particular episode to look at.
A question, I don't know if we have Xenia or she had to leave.
I think Xenia had to leave earlier.
Yeah.
We have this one question here from Adele about the video, whether language played a role in the video. I think this is an interesting question and comment. I thought about this, that the way the CEO was saying it, it could be associated with a male type of language, like go for a son, or, you know, it was like a, if there is something from the language perspective that can lead to that. I think it's an interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
And Peter, I'm thinking you mentioned the agriculture, and the topic of the hackathon is food supply chain. And perhaps if from the participants in the hackathon, they are connected to the networks of those yeah, women in either in agriculture. I mean, I'm happy to make the links with that, because sometimes I feel we have also this gap. We are going to certain events with certain type of women, and either on leadership positions or yeah, talking about investment, but it would be great to connect. So it's kind of a personal commitment or pledge. So if we can share that, I'm happy to connect, because I think it will be beneficial for both also. And it would be maybe a good exercise for mentoring, establishing some type of connection, either in the blue jobs sector, maritime, or yeah, transport and food, agriculture again, yeah.
That's a great idea. The Slack channel is another avenue we could put that into, like you mentioned, with the other resources. Do we have any final questions? Well, this has been a great panel. And I really appreciate all of you the three of you making the time to put this together, to organize it so well, to put this great content together, and for all of you who joined the call to listen in and ask your questions today.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah.
Thank you. Have a great evening or afternoon, depending where you are. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.